Thanks for joining us on KARE 11 News Now. I'm Chris Sarapsky. Some breaking news is happening right now. The Hennepin County Attorney's Office is announcing assault charges, assault with a deadly weapon, against an ICE agent for an incident that stemmed back in February. This comes from this incident, again, it's back in February, and it happened on Highway 62, according to prosecutors. Let's go out to hear from officials what the charge is about and what's being accused.
With 2 counts of second-degree assault. There is now a warrant for Mr. Morgan's arrest, which allows law enforcement to arrest him anywhere in the country. Before I address the details of this case, I want to take a moment to talk about the timeline and why a charging decision was reached earlier in this case than in the shooting of Julio Sosa Solis and the killings of Alex Preddy and Renee Good. I know the community is following the decisions of this office very closely, and I want to be transparent on why these situations are developing at different speeds. This case followed the typical investigation and submission process for cases coming to our office. The Minnesota State Patrol received a 911 call from the victims, who had a gun pointed at them by the driver of a vehicle who pulled up next to them illegally on the shoulder. The State Patrol was able to investigate thoroughly, identify Mr. Morgan, and conduct an interview with him at the Whipple building. After finalizing the investigative case file, the State Patrol submitted the case to our office for potential charges. Virtually none of the obstacles around evidence collection that exist for the January shootings exist in this case. On February 5th, Mr. Morgan was driving illegally on the shoulder of eastbound Highway 62, or the crosstown, just past the Portland Avenue exit, appearing to attempt to bypass slower traffic. The victim who was driving briefly moved their vehicle into the shoulder to slow him down. Mr. Morgan was driving a rented SUV with no markings or other features to indicate that it was an ICE vehicle. After the victim's vehicle moved back into the legal lane, Mr. Morgan sped up to pull alongside the victim's vehicle. Mr. Morgan then visibly slowed his vehicle to match the pace of the victim's vehicle, opened his window, and pointed his duty weapon directly at both victims in the other vehicle while continuing to drive illegally on the shoulder. Both the driver and the passenger in the victim's vehicle felt threatened by Mr. Morgan's actions. The driver called 911 while the passenger began to video the SUV when it pulled into the lane in front of them. On February 6th, State Patrol investigators conducted a voluntary interview with Mr. Morgan and his partner, who had been in the back seat of the rented SUV at the time of the incident. During the interview, Mr. Morgan admitted that he was driving the rented SUV, and he and his partner were headed to the Whipple building to end their shift. Additionally, he admitted that he drew his firearm after the victim's vehicle had already rejoined the normal flow of traffic, corroborating details from interviews with the victim. The State Patrol retrieved video of the incident from highway cameras, which is also consistent with the details of the interviews. We have charged Mr. Morgan with 2 counts of second-degree assault, 1 count for each victim, for threatening the victims with a dangerous weapon. Second-degree assault with a gun has a presumptive sentence of 36 months in prison. Mr. Morgan's conduct was extremely dangerous. Driving while pointing a weapon out of your moving vehicle at the victims who were in another moving vehicle could have led to yet another disastrous incident in a community that has already suffered too many. I want to thank the Minnesota State Patrol for their investigative work on this case and for submitting it to our office for charging consideration. Today's charges reflect an important milestone in our efforts to seek accountability for the harms inflicted on our community during Operation Metro Surge.